My father demanded a DNA test for my grandfather's inheritance. "You don't look like my son," he said. So I submitted the test. Along with those of his favorite sons. I was the only legitimate grandson. While signing as the sole heir, I said, "You can start vacating my house." My father was always clear. I was the mistake of his youth. "Look at your brothers, real men. You were just the shame your mother left in my life." When the notary read that everything was for me, his face twisted. "This is a joke." That decrepit old man didn't even know how to wipe himself anymore. "This will is a farce." He turned to me. "Either you prove you carry my blood or I will contest that will. I won't let a bastard destroy my family's legacy." I didn't even breathe. My older brother, the all-time favorite, pushed me against the wall. "Take the test or I'll drag you to court like the rat you are." My stepmother let out a little laugh. "Everyone knew how easy your mother was. And look at her now, good and dead." My other brother didn't even look at me. "What's the big deal? Or are you scared?" I swallowed hard. "And if I'm not your son, then what?" My father got so close I could smell the cheap whiskey. "Then you owe me everything. Your life, your education, your roof, and you're going to pay for it all." I said nothing. But right there, in that exact second, something in me broke, and with it, their ruin began. The final straw came that same night. When I returned home, the lock had been changed. My belongings were piled in black bags thrown in front of the yard. Taped to the door was a crinkled sheet of paper with his handwriting. "Until you prove you're not an intruder, you're not welcome here." I said nothing. I picked up my things one by one and began to plan what was to come. That night, in a motel that smelled of cheap disinfectant, something changed in me. The insult to my dead mother still resonated. It was no longer just about the inheritance. It was about every accumulated humiliation, every scornful look, every time they made me feel invisible in my own family. I sat on that hard bed with my laptop and wrote the most important email of my life. "Dear family, I accept Dad's challenge. I have scheduled urgent DNA tests for next Saturday. I paid extra for the 72-hour rush processing for all the sons as he suggested. The results will be ready on Tuesday." I sent it to my father, my stepmother, my 2 brothers, and copied all the uncles and cousins. If they wanted a public show, I was going to give it to them. My stepmother's reply arrived in 20 minutes. "Darling, I think your father expressed himself poorly. There's no need to involve everyone. Too late, _" The next day, I went to see my grandfather's lawyer, an older man with tired but sharp eyes. I explained the situation. "Look, son," he said, adjusting his glasses. "Legally, the will is valid regardless of paternity. Your grandfather named you heir by your full name, not for being my grandson. But if there's documented paternity fraud," he paused, thoughtful. "What happens if someone withheld information about paternity to influence family or financial decisions? That could be considered fraud. And fraud invalidates many things." Interesting. Very interesting. That afternoon, I went to my grandfather's house. Technically, it was mine now, but I hadn't had the strength to go through it. In the attic, I found boxes of old documents. Among yellowed letters and faded photos, I saw something that froze my blood, a letter from my grandfather to his best friend, dated 15 years ago. "I don't know what to think of my son's new wife. There's something about her haste to form a new family that doesn't seem right. The poor boy seems like a ghost in his own house. Yesterday, I saw him crying in the garden. When I asked him what was wrong, he only said, 'Grandpa, why does Dad hate me?' I didn't know what to say. Last night, I heard my son talking on the phone. He was saying something about keeping up the farce until the old man dies. I didn't understand the context, but the tone, my God, the tone was of someone waiting for an inheritance. That son of A, had been playing the devoted son while planning my humiliation for years. But a piece was missing. I needed to understand why there was such desperation for money. On Monday, I went to the property registry. As the heir, I had the right to consult the history of the house where they lived. What I found left me breathless. 3 foreclosure notices. The last one was dated last week. My father had 2 months to pay $10,000 or lose the house. Everything fit together, the desperation, the aggression, the public humiliation. They weren't fighting for family pride. They were fighting for financial survival. My phone rang. It was my stepmother. "Darling," her voice dripped with fake honey. "Your father is very upset. You know how his heart is. Don't you think it would be better to settle this privately? Think of the family scandal. Wasn't it your husband who made this a public scandal?" I replied with a calmness that surprised me. "I'm just providing the solution he demanded. See you on Saturday." I hung up. 2 hours later, my older brother called me. "Hey, rat. Dad says if you withdraw that stupid test, he'll let you stay in the basement apartment. The basement apartment of the house they were going to lose in 2 months." Silence. "How do you know that?" "I know many things, brother. See you on Saturday." On Thursday, my father changed the locks on my grandfather's house. I arrived and couldn't get in. My first reaction was panic, then rage, but then I remembered the lawyer's words. I called the police. "Officer, I am the legal heir to this property. I have the certified will. Someone changed the locks without my authorization." Within 2 hours, I had a locksmith and a police officer as a witness. My father came running when he saw the patrol cars. "This is my house. My father lived here." The officer reviewed the documents. "Sir, according to this will, the property legally belongs to your son. You are committing trespassing." My father's face fell. He looked at me with a hatred I had never seen. "This isn't over." "No, it isn't," I said, holding his gaze. "It's definitely not over." That night, I sent a photo of the new keys to my father and stepmother, property secured. "Thanks for the reminder to verify my legal rights." On Friday, my cousin forwarded me a screenshot from the family chat. My stepmother had written, "Don't worry, boys. Your father has everything under control. On Saturday, the mistake will be corrected and we can go back to normal." I laughed for the first time in weeks. If only they knew what I knew. Saturday dawned sunny. I dressed in a shirt my grandfather had given me for my graduation. It was time to honor his memory the right way. I arrived at the lab 30 minutes early. I needed to see their faces when they walked in. My father appeared first in a new suit and that arrogant smile he always wore when he thought he had everything under control. My stepmother arrived next, flanked by her two sons like bodyguards. My brothers looked like catalog models, perfect as always. They posted selfies in the parking lot, family fierce. The irony burned my stomach. My father approached with a fake paternal voice. "You can still stop this. Admit you were wrong and we'll give you something, an apartment perhaps. Don't humiliate yourself further." Humiliate myself? I looked at him straight in the eye. "It was your idea, Dad. I'm just accepting your challenge." The lab technician called us in. While waiting for my turn, I watched my perfect family. My stepmother whispered something in my older brother's ear. He looked at me with contempt and shook his head. Whatever they were planning, I was already 5 steps ahead. During the week of waiting, their smear campaign began. They called every uncle, cousin, and acquaintance. "The grandson is unhinged," my father said on the phone, unaware that I had programmed all my calls to be forwarded to a number where I recorded them. "He wants to steal everything from us." His grandfather was senile when he wrote the will. My stepmother was more subtle. We always knew something wasn't right with him. Poor boy grew up without a real mother figure. Now that my husband has a heart condition. A heart condition. Quite the performance. I sent a group email to the entire family. "I am simply complying with the public demand of my father and his wife. Any questions about the origin of this drama, please direct them to them." On Wednesday, my older brother tried to break into my grandfather's house. I captured him on the security cameras I had installed on Monday. He looked pathetic, struggling with the back door. At 2 a.m., I sent him the screenshot. Should I add a trespassing charge to the family drama? His response was immediate. It was my grandfather's house, too. Wrath was past tense. Now it's mine. He didn't reply again. On Thursday, my stepmother crossed the line. I received a call from the lab. "Sir, we've had an incident. A woman claiming to be your relative tried to bribe one of our technicians to alter the results. For protocol, we have to inform you." My heart raced. "What woman exactly?" "She identified herself as your father's wife. She offered $5,000 to correct some errors." $5,000, money they didn't have. Desperate money. "What did you do?" "We escorted her off the premises. We have everything on video." Perfect. Now I had evidence of attempted bribery. On Friday, the email arrived. Subject, results of your confidential paternity test. I locked myself in my room. Hands shaking. For a week, I had maintained my composure. But now that I had the answers, fear hit me like a truck. What if I really wasn't his son? I opened my result first, 99.9% compatibility with my father. I breathed for the first time in days. I was his son, officially, legally, scientifically. Then I opened the result for my older brother, the eternal favorite, the one who was always more of a son than I was, 0% compatibility. My younger brother, 0% compatibility. Neither of them was my father's son. I shot up from the chair so fast it tipped over. I paced the room, processing the magnitude of what I had just discovered. It wasn't that my father had despised me without reason. It was that he had built his entire family on a monumental lie. That night, I went to the attic of my grandfather's house. More than anything, I was looking for something from my biological mother, a memory they might have overlooked. Among dusty boxes with my grandfather's initials, I saw one that didn't fit. It had no label, only a thicker layer of dust. Curiosity got the better of me. Inside, under broken Christmas decorations, I found a small metal box. Inside were photos, my stepmother, very young, with 2 babies who were unmistakably my brothers. But what shattered me was the man in the photos. It wasn't my father. It was another younger guy who was the spitting image of my brothers. The dates on the back of the photos were from 2 years before she married my father. Everything clicked into place like a sinister puzzle. On the back of one photo, I found a handwritten note, "To my love, who accepts my boys as his own. Gloria, 1998. She hadn't come into the marriage single. My father knew from day one. He had consciously chosen to raise another man's sons while despising me for being his own. My father knew, he had to have known, and he had chosen to participate in that lie while torturing me for not belonging to the family. He hadn't been the innocent cuckold I thought, he had been an accomplice from the very beginning." On Monday, I called my lawyer. "I need you to summon my father, my stepmother, and her sons for a final meeting. Tell them we need to clarify the definition of lineage to properly execute my grandfather's will." "Do you have the results?" "I have them and much more." "How bad is it?" "Let's just say my father is about to discover that raising children who aren't yours while hating the only one who is his consequences." I printed 3 sets of the DNA reports. I printed the photos from the attic. I printed the foreclosure documents. I printed the screenshots of the phone recordings. I prepared 5 identical folders. On Tuesday, my stepmother called me. Her voice sounded fragile. "Darling, your father isn't sleeping. He's very stressed about this whole situation. Couldn't we settle this privately? We're family." "Family?" I laughed humorlessly. "It's funny you use that word. Do you know what I found in the attic this week?" The silence was deafening. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Of course you don't. Not until Wednesday. When you have the DNA results in your hands," she said, but her voice trembled. "The results won't change anything. Your father will always be your father. You're right. But he'll also be the father of no one else in that room. She hung up. On Wednesday morning, as I dressed for the meeting, I thought of my grandfather, of all the times he comforted me when I came home crying, of how he told me that one day I would understand why things were the way they were, of the letter where he expressed his suspicions. He had realized it before I did. He had seen the farce from the beginning and had used his will as a time bomb program to explode at exactly the right moment. It wasn't just an inheritance. It was posthumous justice. My phone vibrated. A message from my older brother: cancel that joke of a meeting. We already know the results are wrong. You're adopted. Period. See you at 2 p.m., I replied. And bring tissues. You're going to need them. As I drove to the lawyer's office, I felt something I hadn't experienced in years: peace. The same peace a surgeon must feel just before excising a tumor. For 25 years, I had lived wondering what was wrong with me, why I didn't fit in, why my father looked at me as if I were a constant disappointment. It turns out there was nothing wrong with me. There was something deeply rotten in them. And today, the world was finally going to see it. The conference room smelled of stale coffee and tension. My father entered with that arrogant confidence he had always used to intimidate me. My stepmother followed, flanked by my two brothers as if they were bodyguards, their united front, their perfect family. They sat on the other side of the table, looking at me as if I were a child about to be punished. My grandfather's lawyer silently reviewed documents. I had 5 folders organized in front of me. Before this fraud continues, my father said, slamming the table, I want to see the result that proves you're not my son. I want this whole farce to end once and for all. I took the first folder and slid my report to the center of the table. The lawyer took it, checked the numbers, and looked at me over his glasses. He is your son. 99.9% compatibility. The silence that followed was deafening. My stepmother turned pale as if she had seen a ghost. My father's jaw dropped. Impossible, my older brother muttered. It has to be wrong. Your turn, I said, sliding the second folder towards him. He opened it with trembling hands. I saw the exact moment his eyes processed the 0% compatibility. He looked at my stepmother with pure confusion. Mom, what does this mean? My younger brother peered over his brother's shoulder. 0%. What? I slid the third folder to him. His hands shook so much he could barely open it. When he saw his own result, he looked at his brother and then at his mother, his eyes glazed over. My father snatched the papers from my brother's hands. Lies. This is a conspiracy. I waited for his tantrum to end. When he calmed down, I held his gaze. You demanded the truth. You never specified you were going to like it. His face contorted with fury. My stepmother tried to speak, but no words came out. I slid the fourth folder towards my father. There's more. With shaking hands, he opened the folder. The photos spilled out onto the table, my stepmother with her baby sons and another man, family photos from a previous life she had hidden for 20 years. The world stopped. My father studied the photos one by one. His face went from confusion to understanding and then to a rage I had never seen. No, my stepmother whispered. My father turned on her like a wounded animal. How did you let this happen? He roared, banging the table. The deal was that he wouldn't matter. Our pact was to protect the boys at all costs, and you were supposed to control your son. She screamed back. That was your only job, to keep the mistake at bay while we built a real family. Their united front crumbled into mutual accusations in the middle of the room, 20 years of lies exploding like a nuclear bomb. When my stepmother tried to deny everything, I took my phone and played a video. This is from the lab. Your wife trying to bribe a technician with $5,000 you don't have. The video clearly showed my stepmother offering money to correct errors. Attempted bribery is a federal crime. If you want to contest the will, this goes straight to the prosecutor. My stepmother slumped in her chair, utterly defeated. My brothers looked at them as if they were watching strangers. Who is that man in the photos? The older one asked, his voice broken. Mom, who is he? He's your real father, I said calmly. You are not my brothers. You never were. My younger brother stood up so fast he knocked over his chair. This can't be real. Sit down. My father roared, but he no longer had authority over anyone in that room. My stepmother finally found her voice. I was young. I was single. He abandoned me when he found out I was pregnant. Your father saved me. Saved you. My father looked at her as if she were poison. Saved you? You used me. You used my money to raise another man's sons while I tortured the only son who was actually mine. The truth was devouring them alive. I slid the last folder towards my father. And I know you're broke. You needed this inheritance to plug the next hole. He opened the folder and saw the foreclosure documents. His last vestige of dignity evaporated. How? I'm the heir to the property. I have the right to review any liabilities that might affect it. 2 months to pay $10,000 or you lose the house. The lawyer cleared his throat. The will is clear. The estate is for the Lord's direct lineage. The results confirm that only one person in this room qualifies. I took the pen and signed the inheritance documents. The sound was like a judge's gavel. I stood up and looked at all of them, my father shattered, my stepmother terrified, my brothers watching the only reality they had ever known crumble. Moving can be difficult for a family, I said. I'm giving you 30 days to vacate my house. My father looked at me with pure hatred. You made me feel like a stranger in my own family while raising another man's sons as if they were pure gold. You ungrateful, no, I interrupted. I am your son. The problem is you chose not to be my father. I headed for the door. My stepmother tried to speak. Wait, can we talk about this? We're family. I stopped without turning around. Family? The word tasted bitter. You destroyed that word a long time ago. You can't throw us out on the street. My older brother screamed. Where are we going to live? I turned to him one last time. Not my problem. I was never part of your family, remember? You were very clear about that for years. This isn't over, my father muttered. No, I replied. It's definitely not over. It's going to be much worse. I walked out of that room, leaving behind the nuclear detonation of 25 years of lies, humiliations, and psychological torture. For the first time in my life, I walked like the legitimate son I had always been. In the parking lot, I heard shouting from the room, accusations, crying, the sound of a fake family disintegrating. I didn't feel pity. I felt justice. My phone vibrated. A message from my older brother, "You screwed us all. I hope it was worth it." I replied, "Ask your mother if lying for 20 years was worth it." That night, for the first time since my grandfather's funeral, I slept soundly, not as a victim, not as the despised grandson, but as what I always was, the sole legitimate heir of a man who loved me enough to give me the tools to destroy those who destroyed me. My grandfather's revenge had been perfect, and so was mine. It's been 6 months since the meeting. I hired professional movers and sent their belongings to separate storage units. A single text to my father, Unit 237. Expires on the 30th. Tell your wife to look for her things in Unit 238. He didn't reply. The news exploded in family circles like a nuclear bomb. It wasn't just paternity fraud. It was a decades-long conspiracy. My father and stepmother became instant social outcasts. Their marriage imploded in a toxic divorce where they blamed each other for their financial and social ruin. My ex-brother called me a month ago crying. Our mother lied to us our whole lives. He kicked us out of the house. We have nothing. So now you know what it's like to be a stranger in your own house, I replied. I wish you luck. I hung up. I've started restoring my grandfather's workshop. Among rusted tools and old blueprints, I'm rediscovering who he really was, and by extension, who I am. I found a photo of my biological parents from before everything broke. I framed it and placed it on the fireplace mantel. Then I burned my stepmother's box of memories. A necessary purification. My cousin wrote to me last week, "Grandpa always knew you were the only one of pure gold. He would be proud." Yesterday, I received a message from an unknown number. "My stepmother, you ruined my life and my son's lives. I hope you rot in hell." I read it, deleted it, blocked the number. They don't even deserve my anger. This afternoon, sitting on the porch of the house that is now truly mine, watching the sunset, I reflect on the final irony. My father demanded a DNA test to prove I didn't belong to his family. In the end, the test proved that the family he built never belonged to him. Justice wasn't revenge. It was an extermination. My grandfather knew exactly what he was doing with that will. He didn't just leave me an inheritance. He left me the truth. And the truth, as he always said, has a peculiar way of coming to light when those who live in lies least expect it. Now I sleep in peace, not as a victim, but as the legitimate grandson I always was. The house is silent, but it's a clean silence without secrets, without lies. For the first time in 25 years, I am exactly where I belong.